So, I found a new series to read during my own podcast or video. During my own video, I discovered a new series from myself. How cool is that? Is that weird? Do you think that's weird? So, welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina K-O-S-T-I-N-A. This is where we read books and talk about books. There's no special effects going on here. What you see is what you get. If you remember that old Roots Web, if you had a Roots Web account years ago, that's what they called it. You're editing, but there's no editing here either. But it was what you see is what you get was their editing phrase. But anyways, there's no editing here. So my poor lighting, my poor audio, that's just me being me. If you could hit the like and subscribe, I would appreciate it. I'm struggling here. I've got this wish for Christmas for 1,000. I probably will not make it, but we can try. But anyways, if you can, please check out this Friday's If Then episode. If you like this author, then maybe you like this author, because this is where I'm going to time travel. I'm time traveling. You'll see Friday, the book today, the day before. Is that time traveling for you? Yes, ma'am. My pal is here. I don't know if you can see her or not. Come here. That's you anyway. But anyways, so that's time traveling for you, and this is a time traveling episode. I found a really good series to read during my own podcast. Can you believe it? If you could please also check out Star Trek Next Gen recaps on Friday, my If Then episodes Friday afternoon, and my Flashback Mondays where I talk about Romantic Time Book Review Magazine, and usually 30 or 40 different books. I try to pick at least 5 from each series, 5 historicals, 5 mainstream, 5 contemporaries, inspirationals, suspense, mystery, paranormals, erotic, the Harlequin, the whole 9 yards. So sometimes you get carried away and do more than 5, maybe 10 or 15 in a category, and then if Flashback runs into 2 hours. But I enjoy it so much, and I hope that you will also tune in for my daily book reviews. We are currently doing J.R. Ward's Black Dagger Brotherhood. We are currently doing Victoria Thompson's Gaslight series, and keep saying Alex Cross, James Patterson's Alex Cross series, which, by the way, is going to be on Prime in a few months. I just saw the advertisement. They're going to do an Alex Cross series. So, while I was doing my If Then, I discovered that I had gotten all these books, and they were all by the same author, and they're actually a continual series, I think. So, we're going to talk about this one, A Murder in Time, by Julie Mcelwain, and that's book 1. And then we have A Twist in Time, Caught in Time, Betrayal in Time, Shadows in Time. And so I got this and I sat down and read it. And it took a while because I was taking a lot of notes, and I should warn you right off the bat, spoilers, lots and lots of spoilers, spoiler alert. One of my video peoples that I listen to has an old Taboo buzzer, and they go beep, 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 beep. Spoiler alert, this is a warning, this spoiler alert. So, spoiler alert, I'm going to tell just about everything. I believe in reading characters, for, character progression. I like to read about how they grow or progress in the series. And because this is a brand new series to me, And because, like I said, really brand new, I wasn't sure who was going to be important in the story, who wasn't, who was going to be main characters that will always be innocent, that, like, just hypothetically, like the mom and the dad and the brother and the sister, the core, there will always be the innocent people that will help do the investigating, and then your extras who will be the bad guys. But because I was coming into this brand new and I wasn't sure who was who and what was what and what was going on here, I started a spreadsheet. There's 35 people on here. Before I got I just lost count, but the above the green line is modern day. Below the green line is the 1800s, 1812ish. And there got to be so many characters and so much staff and so many additional people that I ended up giving up keeping track of the characters. We'll see how many return for the next book and see who's important and see who's going to be a main character. But in the meantime, let's just talk about this, and like I said, be prepared for some spoilers. Kendra was a special person, and her parents are serious nerds. I mean, massively serious nerds, to the point where they don't even care about her. I did not write down this piece in here, but she was genetic. Oh, wait a second, let me see if I can. Okay, so let me just write this down for a second. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning here. Kendra we start the book off. Kendra is an FBI agent, behavioral sciences, I believe it is, and the author throws so much at you. So that's why I had to get that spreadsheet, because I had to keep track of who the people were. It was very overwhelming to start with. If I hadn't been planning to do this review, but I still would have kept track, because I wanted to know who the people were. I wanted to be able to, if somebody said something or somebody did something, I wanted to be able to refer back to my list to see if they were the good guys or the bad guys. So she's an FBI agent who deals with computers, and she finds there's two bad guys, and they're seriously looking for these two bad guys. One of the bad guys, they get an alert that he's in town, so her bosses and all them want to go get this particular gentleman. And then she comes up with the most valuable information in the world, that these two bad guys are going to be meeting in one place because she was able to hack into their phones. So she finds out this very, very valuable information. They put together an op, and they all go to this warehouse to do a takedown of these two very, very bad guys. And the op goes 6 ways to Sunday because one of her members of her team is a bad guy. And it blows Kendra for a loop, and it shatters her world that one of her trusted colleagues is a bad guy. And he ends up trying to kill her. She ends up trying to kill him. And she ends up in the hospital. And that's where we find that her parents don't even come to visit her in the hospital. She's in there for months. She's in comas. And her parents are too busy with their work to see her. They don't care about her. But during one of the hospitals, it's revealed. Well, first, the doctors and the nurses are talking about her, and she's in her coma. And she's like, every now and then she comes a little conscious and hears the stuff that's going on. And one of the nurses goes, "Oh my God, Kendra Donovan." What? Kendra Donovan. This girl, the patient, I just realized I'd heard about her, you know. The voice dropped back to a whisper. Annie's voice, for some reason, floating as she was, it was important to Kendra to know who was talking, to be able to identify the voices. It was on 2020 or 60 Minutes, one of those news programs. Her parents were part of some movement to bring super babies into the world. Super babies? Wait a minute, I think I read about that. Designer babies. The disapproval was back in the other woman's, Pamela's voice. Genetically engineered, tinkering around with their genes to make them smarter than normal Franken babies. I don't know if they went that far, not back then. God only knows what they do now. But the scientists who founded, I guess you call it a society, cult them. Annie concealed. The goal was to bring these super intelligent scientists together to have a super intelligent offspring. Crazy, huh? More like sick. Pamela's voice went from disapproving to appalled. It's breeding like cattle. Put the best livestock together to breed a cow. It's not normal for people. So they talk about her, and then she's like, so she's one of those Franken babies? Yeah, I think she started college at 14 or 15. Geez, that's young. I can't believe she's here, that this girl is her. Small world, huh? Crazy world. Where are our parents? Why aren't they here? I think they had some of us falling out. What's wrong? I don't know. And then they start treating her. So, like, she's been in the hospital. She's been in this coma. And her parents, her father eventually shows up and they have a few hours and then he leaves. So her parents obviously just don't care about her at all. They're just so work focused. They're just so scientifically focused that they just don't care about her. And they're upset that she didn't follow in their footsteps, that she went into being an FBI person. And so, like I said, she gets out of the coma. She does her slow recovery. And then she's determined. She uses all of her skills, every skill she has in computer technology and everything else, to lay a false trail, to get secret identities, secret passports, all this kind of stuff. And she's tracking down the one bad guy that survived. She wants the other bad guy, and she wants him very, very badly, that she's going to risk her life and her career. So she goes undercover by herself, doesn't tell anybody she's going undercover by herself. She gets all these different identities. She travels under assumed names. And she goes to Scotland, or England, should I say. And she's going to this party. She goes to there's a reenactment party where everybody's going to dress in costume for around 1812-ish time period. And all the wait staff are going to be in costume. All the party guests are going to be in costume. And her bad guy is going to be there. And she's got the whole thing all planned out, how she's going to kill him. She's discovered that the castle has secret passageways. And she's going to have him be given a note to set up a promiscuous rendezvous from an unknown female. And she's going to be in the room, and she's going to kill him. But things go wrong, and she goes and has the whole thing set up. It's a flawless plan according to her, but someone beats her to the punch. There's a second person that shows up with the bad guy and shoots and kills the bad guy. And the person sees that Kendra is in the room, and she sees the person, so she runs for her life back into the staircase, the secret doors. She leaves her purse in the room, and so she can be later identified, but we don't know anything about this at first. And so she goes into the secret room, and she appears to experience a vortex of some kind, or a wormhole of some kind. She's not exactly sure what happens. She almost faints a couple of times. She gets dizzy. She has vertigo, and she comes out into this study. And when she comes out into the study, she's in the 1800s. I think it's 1812 is when she specifically comes out. And 1815. So she wakes up in a room full of people she doesn't know. Someone mentions the Treaty of Ghent, and that was a real meeting that took place in Belgium of American delegates and British commissioners that ended with the signing of the Treaty of Ghent on December 24th, 1814. Great Britain agreed to relinquish claims to the Northwest Territory, and both countries pledged to work toward ending the slave trade. And I believe, I don't know anything about it, I did not research it to give you an accurate description, but I don't know why I feel this way, but I get the impression that Britain might have been a little more successful than the US in this endeavor. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't read up on it. I would have to check those textbooks. But so she's ended up in this room with all these people, and she lies, and because she doesn't know what to say, she doesn't know who these people are, she doesn't know where she is or when she is or anything. So she just goes and says that she's a lady's maid, and they don't believe her, but they assign her the only room available is a shared room with one of the maids, and her name is Rose. And she talks to Rose and asks Rose what year it is, and Rose tells her it's 1815. And when she wakes up in the morning, she has to get used to the fact that she has to use the chamber pot. And Rose tells her she's a tweenie, and a tweenie is an in-between maid. She helps the cook and the kitchen maids and the upstairs maid with their duties. And then she meets Tess and Mildred's maids. Mrs. Danbury is the housekeeper, and she interrogates her and knows and in her gut that Kendra is lying her ass off, which basically she is. That if she was a lady's maid, she would be here with one of the ladies, and if she was one of the extra ladies hired for this party, because there is an event, back in the 1800s. If you read any of the Regency books, they always had a whole bunch of guests come and stay at your house for several days to a week, and you would put on entertainment. You would have big dinner parties, and they would go out hunting, or they would play croquet, or they would play card games at night, and maybe somebody would sing or play the piano, and they would schedule entertainments, stuff like that. So that's what she's at. She's one out of these parties with the Duke of Aldridge, I believe is his name. And so the Duke was impressed with her. She reminds him of his daughter, who died very, very young, and his wife had died very, very young, and he's a widow, and he tells the housekeeper to keep her on. So they keep her on, and they settle her as when she lied and said she was a lady's maid. They assign her to two young ladies who did not bring a lady's maid with them, and she's in the room about 5 minutes. She doesn't know how to fix hair. She doesn't know how to do any of the things that a lady's maid does, and she uses language that a lady's maid should not use, and she's immediately dismissed as their lady's maid. So the Miss Danbury decides that she needs to be rescheduled to kitchen maid, I believe, and she thinks she decides she's going to try and go home again, and she's thinking about the her reality of the situation. She says she goes back to the study to where she had the secret room. She says Kendra made a beeline for the hidden door. Her hand shook as she pushed aside the tapestry. It was only when the door swung open that she found herself hesitating, a spidery sense of fear crawling up her spine. Time travel. It was absurd, unbelievable. Yet here she was, smack in the middle of the unbelievable. Having ruled out a brain tumor, psychic break, or hoax, Kendra had to believe that she just spent the morning in the early 19th century. In theory, time travel was possible. Albert Einstein had theorized if gravity was strong enough, it could conceivably cause a curvature in the space-time continuum, forcing time to literally loop back on itself. There were some science fiction freaks who even believed that there were natural gravitational hotspots in the world that would create a vortex of space-time, allowing people to travel through time. But that was science fiction, for Christ's sakes. Excuse me, what happened to you? Of course, there have been experiments that basically proven that time travel is possible. In 1971, scientists J.C. Hafley and Richard E. Keating had placed amazingly accurate atomic clocks, each within the capacity to measure time to the billionth of a second, on jets flying at 600 miles per hour. Using the atomic clock at the U.S. Naval Observatory as a reference point, they documented the nanoseconds of time had both been gained and lost on the clocks aboard the jet. In effect, anyone on board the jet had leaped a nanosecond into the future back to the past. So maybe it is possible. She goes into the stairwell, and she's sitting there doing an imitation of Dorothy, clicking her heels. No place like home, no place like home. Nothing happens. So she goes back into the room, and the Duke's there, and she talks to him and Alec, and then she meets with Miss Danbury, who, after hearing the complaints from the two ladies that she pissed off with all her language and all her cursing, demoted her to lower staff. So then she gets a different kind of uniform. Apparently every level of housekeeping had a different uniform. So then they go to, she has to help set up a picnic by the lake. That's one of their afternoon, they called it a luncheon, are going to take place. And when they get down there, they find a dead girl. And she falls into her police presence, her police, the way she acts with police. She says, Kendra knelt, scanning the girl's white face. God, she looks so young, 14, maybe 15. She hasn't been in the water long, less than 24 hours, I'd say. What are you, bloody body snatcher? Laughed one of the loitering men. A man with ash blonde hair and soulful brown eyes came forward, squatting down beside Alex. I may be of some help. I am a surgeon, Simon Dalton. He introduced himself, meeting Kendra's eyes. He shifted the jacket aside. He took Kendra's a moment to realize he was being careful to preserve the girl's modesty before lifting her arms. She's still in rigor mortis. The water's cold, so rigor mortis could be slow. You seem remarkably well informed. Kendra Donovan, I've had some experience. In murder, forgive me, but you are a woman, a maid. So, since the response seemed to flummox him, Kendra went back to studying the dead girl. I suspect we'll find the high bone and the thyroid and cartilage is compressed from manual strangulation. And look at the eyes, doctor. Subconjugal and pedicular hemorrhage. I'm not a physician, I'm a surgeon. She frowned. What the hell is the difference? Anybody recognize her? Is she in uniform? They try and figure out who she is. Nobody knows who she is. Kendra continues to spit out all this scientific information all this medical information, and they're just looking at her like, huh? You're supposed to be a maid or a kitchen maid or a lady's maid, and how do you know all this stuff? And they're all looking at her. And then she tells them, let's see if I can find it. I'm saying this girl wasn't just strangled. She was strangled repeatedly. The pattern of bruising around the neck is large, irregular, meaning he strangled her and then allowed her to breathe again. Then he brought his hands back, the position slightly different. See? And he strangled her again and again. Utterly preposterous. Who are you really? He turned to the Duke. You can't expect us to swallow such a preposterous tale from a mere servant and a woman to boot. And the Duke buys it all, and his nephew Alec buys it all too. And she tells them that because it was so premeditated and so he wasn't angry, he wasn't emotional when he was doing this, he was very precise, he knew what he was doing, that he will kill again. So then she gets called into the housekeeper's office again, and she says that the Lady Atwood, we don't see Lady Atwood much in this book. She's one of those characters that, you know, when stuff happens on the page, it's one of my authors calls it on stage. But when you're told about things, if Tommy and John are going to the store, if Tommy and John are going to the store, then that's on the page. But if you're told by another character that Tommy and John went to the store, then that happened off stage. So we get a lot of Lady Danbury said this or said that, or agreed to this or agreed to that. So she spends a lot of time off stage. She's really not on stage. We don't really see her directly. So then Kendra talks with Rose and Molly. Later, she attends the meeting with the Duke and Mr. Hilliard, and she asks for chalkboard. They have no idea what she's talking about. They finally go a roundabout way and decide to give her the slates. If you watched, which are chalkboards about this big that the kids use for schoolwork. That's what they used back in the 1800s, little slate pads. So she writes down all her notes, and she's really impressing the hell out of the Duke. He's enjoying her very scientific mind, because he has this very scientific mind. So they take her to the schoolroom, and she discusses their findings with them. She suggests that they get a Bow Street runner, so they get a Bow Street runner. Alex gets upset that the Duke's sister, Kendra, comes in, and she is a really, really good artist. She's a really, really good painter. And Kendra suggests that she draw a picture of the dead girl so that they can pass it around London to help identify the dead girl. And Rebecca insists, and the Duke and Alec are not particularly pleased with this, but Rebecca is very happy to do this, and she does a really good job, and the body is later identified. So Alex is seeing this lady, and she's mentioned a few times, but his fascination with Kendra, him and the Duke seem to both have a fascination, or a tendra, as they call it in the Regencies, for Kendra. And then we have all our different characters. There's a hermit on the premises. Apparently he was paid by Lady Atwood to scare some of the guests. It was supposed to be another form of entertainment. And he is not who he says he is, and he's got a past, but we don't discover that for many, many chapters. And then we learn about their family's history. And so then Rebecca decides that since Kendra is doing all this stuff and she's not actually performing any of the maid's duties, she wants to think of something that will give Rebecca a chance to be able to investigate, because she can't do the investigating if she uh, is trying to peel potatoes or scrub silverware. She has to be able to perform duties or whatever she's supposed to do. So Rebecca makes her companion, and I've got to find it. Chapter before. It's hysterical. It was very interesting, and I just thought I would share it. It's probably something of a world record to be demoted from lady's maid to downstairs maid, and then promoted to a lady's companion within a 5-day time span. It certainly caused a stir below stairs, as everyone regarded Kendra with shock and a new sense of mistrust when she made her way to Mrs. Danbury's office. "This is highly irregular, Miss Donovan," the housekeeper said, staring at her form from the shiny expanse of her desk. Then she murmured, as she thought, trying to explain to herself what motivated Lady Rebecca's unprecedented behavior. Though Lady Rebecca has always been charitable, even as a child. Maids, Kendra deduced, did not become hired companions. Ever. That apparently was reserved for women of rank who had fallen on hard times. Sort of like a 19th century welfare system for the privileged. The housekeeper shook herself out of her reverie, straightening the narrow shoulders. Her lips tightened. "Nevertheless, if Lady Rebecca had indeed taken you on as a companion, arrangements will be made." "What arrangements?" Kendra asked wearily. Mrs. Danbury lifted a heavy leather-bound book off the side. "Sleeping arrangements, for one." She opened the ledger, studying the pages with a critical eye. "All the castle spare rooms are occupied with either guests or servants for the duration of the house party. However, I don't need to move. She wants to stay with Rose." All right. So she's having this big discussion with Miss Danbury where she should sleep, and she tells the woman that she wants to stay with Rose in Rose's room. "Why in heaven's name do you insist on sharing a bedchamber with a tweenie?" "Because it's my choice," Kendra says. "Mrs. Danbury, it's my choice." "You want to share a room with a chambermaid?" Lady Rebecca paused in the act of pouring tea. "She's a tweenie, and yes, I see no reason to sleep anywhere else." Kendra was beginning to feel slightly foolish for digging in her heels on this particular matter. After all, why did she care where she slept as long as she slept somewhere in the 21st century? That should be her main priority. So she establishes a relationship with Rebecca. And so then she has to sit through dinner. She gets promoted and she gets to sit at the dinner table with the guests. Then she speaks with the Duke and asks him to make sure that the Bow Street Runner checks for additional murders within a 5-year period of time. He does. There was a couple of chapters which led me to believe, well, not even chapters. One of the things that I like what Patterson does, most authors don't do this. Some do, but most don't, and I like that Patterson does do it. That when a POV changes, it's a new chapter. Even if it's only 1 page and 2 paragraphs, the character gets their own chapter and their own POV. That's one of the things that I like about. So you have to feel the character's voice in your head and know that these couple of chapters here belong to Kendra and her thoughts, and then these down here belong to Alec. So that leads me to believe he may be more. We don't get the Duke's POV, but we do get Alex's POV. We do get the killer's POV, and we do get 1 or 2 other POVs very briefly, not as intently as Alex. And he's starting to establish a relationship with her, but he is sort of in a relationship with one of those established ladies of rank. And so he spends a lot of time thinking of Kendra, though. He's also trying to work out the relationship with his brother. Kendra, at some point in the book, thinks that Gabriel might be the suspect. She pulls a stunt on him. It kind of wakes him up a little bit and gets him thinking maybe he'll change his life. But that doesn't go very well. I don't want to spoil that particular part. But the Bow Street Runner does come back, and he says that he has a list of girls that he killed several girls each year in particular months, and there is a pattern. And then she asked for a map of London so they can see where he's taken the girls from. Then we get a victim's POV. All of a sudden, at first you're like, why are we finding out about this young lady now? Why are we getting her POV? Well, of course, she's going to be the next victim. But, you're like, why is this coming out of left field? This was other person. And she does get her own chapter. And so it was April Dupree. And apparently, we discover later, sort of spoiler alert here, that she knew who the killer was. And she spoke to the Bow Street Runner, and she didn't divulge such information. And she should have, because it might have saved her life, because she becomes one of the guy's victims. And so Kendra is really heavy investigating on this, and she gives a little bit away. She had told the peeps in the thing that she had come to England by ship, but Alec investigates, and he gets word that her name did not appear on any of the passenger manifests for any of the ships. So then they get into a conversation, and I didn't write this page down, so I can't discuss it, but she mentions Jane Austen and the Pride and Prejudice books, and he gets a copy of the book, and he shows her that it says by Lady A. And apparently Jane Austen, that was her pseudonym. The books didn't appear under her own name until after she was deceased, I believe. But the books, were, really good sellers, though. Then they find another dead body, and they, instead of having the local surgeon do the autopsy, they call in a doctor from London, and he does a better autopsy, and he thinks Kendra's observances are really, really good. And Kelly, the Bow Street Runner, is really, really good too. He does a really good job. So they spend a lot of time. Her and the Duke do a lot of traveling around town, and they do a lot of interrogations, questioning suspects, getting alibis for the time of the murder, and then they find another body, and Kendra has a case of the guilt, and it really, really bothered her. And I don't think there was anything else that I really wanted to. No. So she has a really massively bad case of the guilt, and it really destroys her when this last person is killed. And then she has a light bulb moment, and all the pieces fit together, and then she goes after the killer, and the killer may go after her too, and several other people are also injured and implicated in this. And the end of the book ends in prime present period of time, and apparently her superiors believe that she was the one that killed the bad guy. She didn't do it in the beginning. Remember, way, way back in the beginning of this, she had gone to that house party and had gone there to kill the guy, but she didn't kill him. Someone got there first and then tried to kill her before she went to the passageway. So she's on the FBI's most wanted list now. She doesn't know it because she's still in 1812 or 14. But this is such a good book, and it kept my attention. It took a little extra time to read, but I'm so glad I did the time travel series, that I found this series to read. So I'm telling you that I am going right into this one. So look for this video in a couple days. And if you could spring forward in time and possibly check out my If Then Time Travelers on Friday of this week, I would be most appreciative. I hope, I can't believe I found a book for myself during one of my If Then podcasts, but I found a series for myself to read. So please check it out. I did about 25 books. Maybe you'll find a series. Maybe you'll go through that and see the Stephen Lawhead. And that was another one of the series that I got involved in that I did. I did all 5 books, so please go check out those. And the Kelly Armstrong video I did last year. And don't forget to please check out Star Trek recaps and my If Then time travel. My If Then last week was Highlanders and my forensic. And please go check out my Black authors If Then. I worked so really hard on that, getting a variety of books. And at last check, only 10 people had watched. So if you could please check out that one and spread the word on that one, I'd appreciate it. Go back and watch maybe the Bridgertons, the very first If Then I did. I have done vampires. I did forensics. I did detectives. I did Scotland Yard. So if you could please check all those out, I'd really appreciate it. And if you could please hit the like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. I hope you have a good day. And I'm off to the next book. Have a good one.